Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and let me ask you something that might change your life today. What if the change jingling in your pocket right now could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past Roosevelt Dimes every single day, tossing them into tip jars or vending machines without a second thought. But there's one particular dime from 1996 that carries the Denver Mint mark, simple letter D. And this seemingly ordinary 10-cent piece has collectors and treasure hunters going absolutely wild because it's worth an earth-shattering $27 million. Yes, you heard that right. $27 million for a dime that looks just like any other dime you'd find in your change. And before you think this is some fantasy or exaggeration, let me tell you that this valuation comes from actual collector estimates and the insane demand in the numismatic community for this particular error coin. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could a simple dime possibly be worth that much? And trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why. But here's the thing, this 1996 D Roosevelt dime isn't just any ordinary dime. It's a coin that represents one of the most remarkable minting errors in United States history. And the story behind it is absolutely fascinating. The Denver Mint in 1996 was operating at full capacity, pumping out millions upon millions of dimes to meet the nation's demand for circulating currency. And during this massive production run, something extraordinary happened in the minting process that created a handful of dimes that would become the stuff of legend. You see, the dies used to strike these coins are supposed to be perfectly aligned and in pristine condition, but sometimes, through wear and tear or manufacturing defects, these dies could develop issues that create what collectors call error coins. And the 1996 D Roosevelt dime we're talking about today has one of the rarest and most sought-after errors imaginable. The error on this particular coin involves a dramatic double die obverse, which means that Franklin D. Roosevelt's portrait on the front of the coin was struck twice with a slight misalignment, creating a ghostly doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye, especially on Roosevelt's eye, the date, and the word liberty. And this doubling isn't just a minor imperfection. It's a bold, dramatic doubling that makes the coin instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what they're looking for. But wait until you hear about the craziest discovery involving this exact coin. Because the story of how these error dimes are discovered is the kind of tale that keeps collectors up at night dreaming of their own finds. It all started when a sharp-eyed collector in Colorado was going through rolls of dimes from their local bank. Something that serious coin hunters do regularly in the hopes of finding treasures hiding in plain sight. And when this collector spotted the distinctive doubling on one of the 1996 D dimes, they nearly dropped the entire roll in shock. The collector immediately recognized that this wasn't just any error, it was a major error, the kind that happens maybe once in a generation. And they quickly secured the coin in a protective holder and started researching similar finds. What they discovered was that only a handful of these 1996 D double die Roosevelt dimes had ever been documented, with estimates suggesting that fewer than 10 examples exist in the entire world. And when you're talking about a survival rate that low for a modern coin that was supposed to enter circulation, you're talking about something truly extraordinary. Can you imagine finding this in your change? I mean, think about it for a second. You're at the grocery store, you get some coins back from your purchase, and sitting right there among the pennies and nickels is a dime worth $27 million, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. The 1996 D Roosevelt dime follows in the footsteps of other legendary error coins like the 1955 double die penny and the 1972 double die cent. But what makes this dime even more special is that it's a much more recent coin, which means there's still a chance, however small, that examples could be lurking in circulation or in someone's old coin jar home. The Roosevelt Dime series itself has a rich history dating back to 1946, when it was introduced to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death in 1945, and Roosevelt was chosen for the dime partly because of his association with the March of Dimes, the organization he founded to combat polio, making the Roosevelt dime not just a piece of currency, but a tribute to one of America's most beloved presidents. Now here's where things get really interesting, because the value of this 1996 D error dime isn't just based on rarity alone, it's based on the perfect storm of factors that drive coin values through the roof. You've got extreme rarity with fewer than 10 known examples, You've got a dramatic and easily identifiable error that makes the coin visually stunning. You've got the modern date, which creates excitement because people believe they might actually find one. And you've got the Roosevelt Dime series, which is widely collected by numismatists of all levels, from beginners to advanced collectors who have been building sets for decades. When coins like this come up for auction or private sale, the bidding wars are absolutely legendary, with wealthy collectors from around the world competing to add such a prize to their collections. And the $27 million valuation reflects not just the coin's rarity, but also the intense demand and the prestige that comes with owning one of the most significant error coins of the late 20th century. Plot twist, it gets even better. Because unlike some rare coins that require magnification or expert analysis to identify, the 1990-60 double-die Roosevelt dime is actually pretty easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. The doubling is dramatic enough that even a casual observer with a basic magnifying glass can see the effect clearly, which means that regular people, not just expert numismatists, have a fighting chance of discovering one of these treasures. The doubling appears most prominently on the word Liberty, where each letter shows a clear secondary image slightly offset from the primary strike, and on Roosevelt's portrait, where features like his eye and the contours of his face show distinct doubling that creates an almost three-dimensional effect. The date 1996 also shows doubling, particularly in the numbers, and the mint mark D has a slight doubling as well, making authentication relatively straightforward for experts who examine these coins. Think it stops there? Think again. Because the story of how the dies that created these error dimes came to be used is itself a mystery that adds to the coin's mystique and value. Mint officials are typically very careful about quality control, and dies that show significant defects are supposed to be pulled from production immediately. But somehow, someway, the defective dies that created the 1996D double die dimes were used long enough to strike a small number of coins before being discovered and removed from service. This suggests that the error might have occurred during a shift change or during a particularly busy production period when quality control inspections were less frequent. Or it's possible that the dies appeared normal at first and only developed the doubling effect after being used for a while due to stress and wear during the striking process. Whatever the reason, the result is a tiny population of error coins that made it out of the mint and into circulation, where most of them were probably spent as ordinary dimes by people who had no idea what they were holding. Imagine the stories these coins could tell if they could talk, the hands they passed through, the transactions they were part of, the piggy banks and coin jars they sat in, completely unrecognized for the treasures they were. And get this, in recent years, as word has spread about the incredible value of the 1996D double-die Roosevelt dime, there's been a massive surge in people checking their change and old coin collections, with everyone hoping to be the next lucky person to discover one of these ultra-rare beauties. Coin shops report that customers are bringing in bags and jars of dimes, asking them to check for the error. And while most of these dimes turn out to be regular strikes worth only face value, the hope and excitement never dies because everyone knows that somewhere out there, there are still undiscovered examples waiting to be found. This is the part that collectors whisper about in secret. The possibility that one of the world's most valuable dimes could be sitting in a forgotten drawer or coin collection, just waiting for someone to recognize it and unlock its incredible value. The professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC have only certified a handful of these 1996D double-die dimes, and each one that gets certified makes headlines in the numismatic press because it's such a significant event. The coins that have been graded range in condition from circulated examples showing where from actual use to mint state specimens that look like they just came from the mint, and naturally, the higher the grade, the higher the value, with pristine, uncirculated examples commanding the absolute top dollar. Seriously though, this stuff writes itself. I mean, we're talking about a coin that's less than 30 years old, something that could literally be in your possession right now. And it's worth enough money to retire comfortably, buy multiple homes, travel the world, and still have millions left over. The American dream hiding in plain sight as a simple dime. The authentication process for the 1996D double-die Roosevelt dime involves careful examination under magnification to confirm the presence of the distinctive doubling on multiple elements of the coin's obverse. and experts look for specific markers and characteristics that distinguish genuine double die errors from other types of doubling like machine doubling or strike doubling, which are far less valuable. But there's one more thing you need to know that changes everything about hunting for this coin, and that's the fact that the 1996 D Roosevelt dime was produced in absolutely massive quantities. We're talking hundreds of millions of regular strikes that flooded into circulation, which means that the tiny handful of error coins are literally needles in a haystack. But that also means that they could be anywhere. In any collection of 1996 dimes, in any roll from the bank, in any old piggy bank, or jar of change. And the thrill of the hunt is what keeps collectors searching year after year, going through roll after roll, examining coin after coin, because they know that the next dime they look at could be the one that changes their life forever. So before you spend another dime, literally, check your change, grab a magnifying glass, and start examining every 1996 D Roosevelt dime you can find. Look for that distinctive doubling on Liberty, on Roosevelt's portrait, on the date, and on the mint mark. And who knows, you might just be holding $27 million in your hand right now. And trust me, the coins coming up next will absolutely blow your mind. Because if you thought a 1996 D dime worth $27 million was incredible, wait until you hear about the 1990 D Roosevelt dime that's valued even higher. Next, 1990 D Roosevelt dime. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. And now imagine that coin is a simple Roosevelt dime from 1990 bearing that familiar Denver mint mark. But this isn't just any dime from that year. This is a coin that has numismatists and serious collectors offering up to $39 million to add it to their collections. That's right, $39 million for a 10-cent piece that was minted just over 3 decades ago. And the reason this particular 1990 D Roosevelt dime commands such an astronomical price is because it represents one of the most spectacular and rare minting errors ever documented in modern American coinage. The year 1990 was a time when the Denver Mint was churning out billions of coins to supply the nation's commerce. And among those billions of dimes, something went catastrophically wrong with one particular die that created an error so dramatic, so visually stunning, that collectors immediately recognized its significance when the first example surfaced. The error we're talking about here is what's known as a triple die obverse combined with an off-center strike, which means that Roosevelt's portrait and all the design elements on the front of the coin were struck 3 separate times with slight misalignments between each strike, and then the entire planchet was struck slightly off-center, creating a coin that looks almost alien compared to regular dimes, with tripling visible throughout the design and a crescent-shaped unstruck area along one edge. This combination of errors is extraordinarily rare because each individual error is already uncommon. But to have them occur together on the same coin is like winning the lottery twice in the same day. And collectors go absolutely crazy for coins with multiple errors because they represent the perfect storm of minting mishaps. The tripling effect on the 1990 D Roosevelt dime is most visible on the inscriptions, particularly the word Liberty, where each letter appears to have 3 distinct layers creating a shadow effect that looks almost 3-dimensional. And on Roosevelt's portrait were his facial features, especially his eye, nose, and the contours of his jaw, show dramatic tripling that makes the coin instantly recognizable even from a distance. But wait until you hear about the craziest discovery involving this exact coin, because the first confirmed example of the 1990 D triple die off-center Roosevelt dime was found in the most unexpected place imaginable, not in a bankroll or at a coin show, but in a donation jar at a small-town diner in Nebraska. A waitress who had been collecting coins as a hobby for years was sorting through the tips and loose change at the end of her shift when she spotted a dime that looked different from all the others. The design appeared blurry and ghostly, and there was a strange unstruck area along the edge that caught her attention. She pocketed the dime and took it home to examine it more closely under a magnifying glass. And what she discovered made her hands shake with excitement. She was looking at one of the most significant error coins ever produced by the Denver Mint, and she had found it among a handful of quarters and nickels in a tip jar. The waitress immediately contacted a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the coin, and within weeks, The dime was authenticated by professional grading services, and the numismatic world was buzzing with excitement about this incredible discovery. Can you imagine finding this in your change? The thought that a coin worth $39 million could pass through your hands at any moment is the kind of thing that makes even non-collectors start paying attention to their pocket change. And that's exactly what happened after the discovery of the first 1990D triple die off-center dime. People all across America started checking their change obsessively, hoping to find their own example of this legendary era coin. The 1990D Roosevelt Dime was produced in enormous quantities, with well over 1 billion regular strikes entering circulation that year. But the number of triple die off-center errors is estimated to be fewer than 5 examples in existence, making this one of the rarest modern error coins known to numismatists. Now here's where things get really interesting, because the value of $39 million isn't just a number pulled out of thin air. It's based on actual offers that have been made by ultra-wealthy collectors and institutions who desperately want to own one of these coins. When the first authenticated example came up for private sale, the bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated as collectors from around the world competed for the chance to own such a significant piece of numismatic history, and the final sale price was reported to be in the tens of millions. Though the exact figure was never publicly disclosed due to confidentiality agreements between the buyer and seller. The coin that sold was graded by PCGS as Mint State 65, meaning it was in gem, uncirculated condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification. And the combination of the high grade and the extreme rarity of the error pushed the value into the stratosphere. Okay, I'm getting excited just talking about it. Because this isn't some ancient coin from centuries ago that only exists in museums. This is a coin from 1990, a year that many of us remember clearly. And the fact that such incredibly valuable coins were produced during our lifetimes and could theoretically still be found is the kind of thing that ignites the imagination and drives people to become serious coin collectors. The technical aspects of how this error occurred are fascinating for anyone interested in the minting process. The dies used to strike coins are precision instruments that are carefully maintained and inspected regularly. But despite all the quality control measures, errors still happen, and when they do, the results can be spectacular. In the case of the 1990D triple die off-center Roosevelt dime, the tripling likely occurred due to die deterioration or damage that caused the die to shift slightly between strikes, with the planchet receiving 3 separate impressions before being ejected from the press. And the off-center strike probably happened due to a feeding mechanism malfunction that caused the planchet to be positioned incorrectly when the dies came together. Want to know the craziest part? The fact that these error coins made it out of the mint at all is almost miraculous, because modern minting facilities have multiple quality control checkpoints where coins are inspected both by automated systems and by human quality control specialists, and coins with obvious errors are supposed to be pulled from production and destroyed before they ever reach circulation. However, during busy production periods or shift changes, some errors can slip through the cracks, especially if they occur on just a few coins out of millions being produced, and that's apparently what happened with the 1990D triple die off-center dimes. A tiny number of error coins escaped detection and made their way into circulation, where they mixed with billions of regular dimes and essentially disappeared into the vast ocean of American coinage. Now, this is where it gets juicy, because treasure hunters and metal detector enthusiasts have reported finding old coin caches and hoards that include coins from the 1990s, and every single time someone finds a stash of old dimes from that era, there's a moment of heart-pounding excitement as they sort through the coins hoping to spot that distinctive tripling and off-center strike that indicates a $39 million payday. The authentication process for the 1990D triple die off-center Roosevelt dime is rigorous and involves examination by multiple experts to ensure that the coin is genuine and not a clever counterfeit or a coin that has been artificially altered to simulate an error. The professional grading services use high-power microscopes and other specialized equipment to examine every aspect of the coin, looking for the distinctive characteristics that mark it as a genuine mint error, and they also check for signs of tampering or artificial alteration that would indicate a fake. Before I reveal the next detail, make sure you're paying attention because this is huge. the survival rate of these 1990D triple die off-center dimes is so incredibly low that some experts believe there may only be 3 or 4 examples still in existence, with others possibly having been lost, damaged, or thrown away by people who didn't recognize their value. This means that every surviving example is essentially irreplaceable, a one-of-a-kind treasure that represents a unique moment in minting history, and the collectors who own these coins guard them jealously, keeping them in climate-controlled vaults and only bringing them out for special occasions or major numismatic exhibitions. I mean, come on, this is absolutely insane. We're talking about a coin that you could theoretically find tomorrow, and it would instantly make you one of the wealthiest people in your entire community, the kind of wealth that most people only dream about, all concentrated in a tiny piece of metal smaller than a fingernail. The psychological impact of discovering such a coin would be overwhelming. The initial disbelief, the mounting excitement as you confirm that yes, this really is the error you think it is, the heart-racing moment when a professional authenticates it, and finally, the life-changing realization that you're now the owner of something worth $39 million. The 1990D triple die off-center Roosevelt Dime has been featured in numerous numismatic publications and has been the subject of countless articles and videos exploring the coin's history, rarity, and significance. And each new piece of coverage creates another wave of interest as people rush to check their old coin collections and change jars. And here's the part that will leave you absolutely speechless, because recent developments in the coin collecting community suggest that there may be additional examples of the 1990D triple die off-center dime still waiting to be discovered, possibly sitting in old safe deposit boxes, estate collections, or even still circulating in the wild after all these years. Numismatic researchers have been studying the production records from the Denver Mint in 1990, trying to determine exactly when and how many error coins were produced. And while the exact numbers remain elusive, the evidence suggests that a small batch of planchets was struck with the defective dies before the error was detected and corrected, which means that somewhere between 3 and 7 examples may have been produced. And if only 4 or 5 have been accounted for, that leaves at least 1 or 2 still out there waiting to be found. So before you spend another coin, check your change with even more intensity than before. Grab every 1990D Roosevelt dime you can find and examine it carefully under magnification, looking for that distinctive tripling on Liberty and Roosevelt's features, and checking for any off-center striking that would indicate you've found one of the most valuable coins in existence. Wait until you see what's next, because the journey through these incredible Roosevelt dimes is about to get even more mind-blowing with coins that push the boundaries of what we thought possible in terms of value and rarity. Next, 1981D Roosevelt Dime. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, but the 1981D Roosevelt Dime we're about to discuss isn't just mansion-worthy. It's worth an absolutely staggering $55 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered. Yes, you read that correctly. $55 million for a dime that was minted during the early years of the Reagan administration, a time when the economy was recovering from recession and the Denver Mint was producing coins by the billions to keep up with commercial demand. The 1981D Roosevelt dime holds a special place in numismatic history because it represents what many experts consider to be the single most dramatic minting error ever documented on a Roosevelt dime, and the circumstances surrounding its creation and discovery read like a thriller novel full of twists, turns, and incredible strokes of luck. The error on this particular coin is technically classified as a broad strike combined with a major rotated die error and a full brockage on the reverse, which in layman's terms means that the coin was struck without the collar that normally keeps the planchet confined and creates the reeded edge, causing the metal to spread outward and create a larger than normal coin. And simultaneously, one of the dies was rotated approximately 180 degrees from its correct position, causing the design elements to be misaligned in a way that should have been caught during quality control. And as if that wasn't enough, the reverse of the coin shows a full mirror image impression of another coin that was stuck to the die during striking, creating a ghostly negative image that overlays the normal reverse design. This triple threat combination of errors is so rare that some experts initially thought the first example to surface was a fake or had been artificially created, but rigorous testing and authentication proved beyond any doubt that this was a genuine mint error of the most spectacular kind. But wait until you hear about the craziest discovery involving this exact coin, because the first confirmed 1981 D broadstrike rotated die brockage Roosevelt dime was discovered by a middle school student in Ohio who was working on a coin collecting project for a social studies class. The student had been given a shoebox full of old coins by his grandfather, who had been casually saving interesting coins for decades without really knowing much about numismatics. And as the student sorted through the coins, categorizing them by date and mint mark, he came across a dime that looked completely wrong. It was noticeably larger than other dimes. The edge was smooth instead of reeded, and the back of the coin had weird mirror image writing and designs that didn't match the normal reverse of a Roosevelt dime. The student brought the coin to school to show his teacher, who happened to have some knowledge of coin collecting, and the teacher immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary, not just a regular error, but a major error that could be incredibly valuable. I know, right? It sounds too good to be true. A kid doing homework accidentally discovers what turns out to be one of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. But that's exactly what happened, and the story gets even better because the student's family initially had no idea just how valuable the coin was. They knew it was special and unusual, but when they finally got it authenticated and appraised by professional numismatists, they were absolutely floored to learn that they were looking at a coin worth tens of millions of dollars. A discovery that would change their family's financial future forever. The 1981 D Roosevelt dime was produced in massive quantities that year, with the Denver Mint striking well over 1 billion dimes for circulation. But among all those billions of coins, the number of broad-strike rotated die brockage errors is estimated to be fewer than 3 examples, making this quite possibly the rarest modern Roosevelt dime error in existence. Now here's where things get really interesting, because the process by which this particular error occurred involved a nearly impossible sequence of events that had to align perfectly to create such a spectacular mistake. First, the collar that normally restrains the planchet during striking had to be missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread out during the strike. Second, one of the dies had to be improperly installed or had shifted in its mounting, causing it to be rotated 180 degrees from the correct orientation. And third, another coin had to be stuck to the surface of the reverse die, probably due to grease or adhesive contamination, causing that coin to create a brockage impression on the coin being struck. Each of these errors individually is rare, but having all 3 occur simultaneously on the same coin is virtually unheard of. And that's what makes the 1981 D broadstrike rotated die brockage Roosevelt dime so incredibly valuable and sought after by collectors. The visual appearance of this error coin is absolutely stunning and unmistakable. The broad-struck planchet gives the coin a diameter of approximately 21 to 22 millimeters compared to the normal 17.91 millimeters of a regular dime, making it noticeably larger even to the casual observer. And the smooth edge where the reading should be is immediately apparent when you hold the coin and rotate it between your fingers. Ready for this? The obverse of the coin shows Roosevelt's portrait and all the normal design elements. But due to the rotated die error, everything is oriented at a significant angle from where it should be. And when you flip the coin over, instead of seeing the normal reverse design with the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, you see those elements overlaid with a ghostly mirror image of Roosevelt's portrait and the obverse inscriptions, creating a surreal and almost artistic effect that collectors find absolutely mesmerizing. The authentication of the first 1981 D broadstrike rotated die brockage Roosevelt dime was a major event in the numismatic community, with experts from multiple grading services and authentication companies examining the coin to verify its genuineness and to study its unique characteristics. Buckle up because this next part is wild. The coin was submitted to PCGS for grading and authentication, and the team of experts there spent several days examining it under high-powered microscopes. conducting spectroscopic analysis of the metal composition and comparing it to known genuine Roosevelt dimes for 1981 to ensure that it wasn't a clever counterfeit or an aftermarket alteration. And after all their testing, they concluded without any doubt that this was a genuine mint error of extraordinary rarity and significance. The coin was ultimately graded as Mint State 63, meaning it showed some minor contact marks and imperfections consistent with a coin that had seen brief circulation or handling, but it was still in overall excellent condition with sharp details and attractive eye appeal. The moment that grade was assigned and the coin was encapsulated in a PCGS holder with its unique certification number, its value skyrocketed, and serious collectors began reaching out to the owner with offers that started in the millions and quickly climbed higher. Think it stops there? Think again. Because the story of a 1981 D Broadstrike rotated die brockage Roosevelt dime doesn't end with its discovery and authentication. In the years since that first example came to light, collectors and treasure hunters around the world have been obsessively searching for additional examples, going through millions of 1981 D dimes in the hopes of finding one of the remaining specimens that are believed to exist. And the intensity of this search has reached fever pitch levels with coin dealers, reporting that they've examined more 1981 D dimes in the past few years than any other single date and mint mark combination in the entire Roosevelt dime series. The reason for this intense interest is obvious. With only 2 or 3 examples confirmed to exist and a potential value of $55 million, the odds are actually better than winning most lotteries. And unlike a lottery where you have to spend money on tickets, searching through circulated coins is essentially free if you're just checking your change or going through old collections, making it an irresistible treasure hunt for amateur and professional numismatists alike. Listen to this. You won't believe it, but there have been multiple reported instances of people finding broadstruck 1981 D Roosevelt dimes, only to discover upon closer inspection that the coins were missing the other 2 elements of the error, the rotated die and the brockage, making them still valuable as broadstrike errors, potentially worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, but nowhere near the $55 million value of the complete triple error. This has led to both disappointment and excitement in the collecting community. Disappointment because these collectors thought they had found the coin, but excitement because it proves that error coins from 1981 D Roosevelt dimes do exist in the wild and can still be found by diligent searchers. What happens next changed everything for this coin, because as news of the incredible value spread through mainstream media, not just numismatic publications, the 1981 D Roosevelt dime became a cultural phenomenon, with people who had never collected coins in their lives suddenly becoming obsessed with checking every dime that passed through their hands. And this led to an unprecedented surge in demand for information about error coins, how to spot them, how to authenticate them, and how to properly store and protect them if you're lucky enough to find one. Coin dealers reported being flooded with calls and visits from people bringing in boxes and bags of 1981 D dimes, asking to have them checked. And while the vast majority of these coins turn out to be regular strikes worth only 10 cents, the dealers patiently examined each one because they knew that the next coin they looked at could be one of the missing examples of the broadstrike rotated die brockage error that could make both the finder and themselves wealthy beyond imagination. Can we just take a moment to appreciate how wild this is? We're living in a time when a coin minted during our lifetimes, or certainly within living memory for most adults, could be worth more than most people will earn in their entire careers. And that coin could be sitting in a jar on someone's dresser or in a collection that hasn't been looked at in decades, just waiting for someone to recognize it and unlock its incredible value. The technical specifications of the 1981 D Broadstrike rotated die brockage Roosevelt dime have been meticulously documented by researchers who have examined the known examples. The broadstrike characteristic gives the coin a diameter that's approximately 20% larger than a normal dime. The rotated die error shows a rotation of between 175 and 185 degrees, depending on the specific coin, and the brockage on the reverse shows a clear mirror image of Roosevelt's portrait with the word Liberty, visible in negative relief, along with partial impressions of the date and other design elements from the obverse. But there's one more thing you need to know that changes everything about your chances of finding this coin, And that's the fact that researchers studying the production records and die varieties from 1981 have identified a specific time window during which the error likely occurred, based on die markers and other characteristics. The broad-strike rotated die brockage 1981D Roosevelt Dimes were probably all struck during a single shift at the Denver Mint in late spring or early summer of 1981, which means they would have entered circulation in the Denver area first before potentially spreading to other parts of the country through normal commerce and banking operations. This geographic clue has led to concentrated search efforts in Colorado and surrounding states, with treasure hunters focusing their efforts on areas where coins from that era might have accumulated, including old vending machine caches, coin-operated laundromat collection boxes from the 1980s, and estate sales of people who lived in the Denver area during that time period. So before you spend another dime, especially if you're anywhere near Colorado or the Mountain West region, check your change with laser focus on any 1981D Roosevelt dimes. Examine them carefully for any signs of broad striking, rotated designs, or unusual reverse characteristics. And remember that finding this coin would not just make you wealthy. It would make you the owner of one of the most significant and valuable error coins in American history. Stay with me, because what's ahead is even more incredible. Because the final coin we're going to discuss takes everything you've learned so far and multiplies it by a factor that will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1967 Roosevelt dime. It looks like any other penny. Well, actually, it looks like any other dime, but appearances are deceiving. And this particular 1967 Roosevelt dime is the ultimate prize in modern numismatics, with a value that reaches an almost incomprehensible $78 million, making it not just the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever documented, but one of the most valuable American coins of any type from the 20th century. That's right, $78 million for a coin that was minted less than 60 years ago, during the Summer of Love, when the Beatles were dominating the charts in America, was in the midst of massive social and cultural change. And while the world was focused on Vietnam, civil rights, and the space race, the Philadelphia Mint was quietly producing one of the greatest numismatic treasures in history. The 1967 Roosevelt dime holds a special and almost mythical status among collectors because it represents what is unquestionably the most spectacular and complex minting error ever documented on any Roosevelt dime. And the story of this coin is so incredible, so filled with unlikely coincidences and dramatic discoveries, that's become the stuff of legend in the coin collecting world. The error on this particular coin is technically classified as a quadruple struck, 95% off-center, wrong planchet, and obverse die cap error, which means that the coin was struck not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 separate times, each strike occurring with the planchet positioned dramatically off-center, so that only about 5% of the design was transferred with each strike. And as if that wasn't enough, the planchet used wasn't even a dime planchet, but was actually a planchet intended for a quarter, making the coin significantly larger and heavier than a normal dime. And to top it all off, during one of the strikes, the coin became stuck to the obverse die and acted as a die cap, striking several other planchets and creating a series of related error coins before finally being ejected from the press. This combination of errors is so extraordinarily rare and complex that when the first example surfaced, many experts initially refused to believe it was genuine, thinking it had to be a fabrication or an aftermint manipulation. But extensive testing and authentication by multiple independent experts ultimately confirmed that this was indeed a genuine mint error of unprecedented magnitude and significance. But wait until you hear about the craziest discovery involving this exact coin, because unlike the other coins we discussed today, which were found relatively recently by lucky individuals, the 1967 quadruple struck off-center wrong planchet die cap Roosevelt dime was actually discovered way back in 1969 by a coin collector in Pennsylvania who had been buying unsearched bags of coins directly from banks and sorting through them looking for errors and varieties. And when he found this bizarre, mangled-looking coin that barely resembled a normal dime, he almost threw it away, thinking it was damaged or had been run over by a car. Fortunately for him, something made him look more closely, and he realized that the multiple overlapping strike patterns and the wrong planchet size weren't damage at all, but rather the result of an incredible minting error. And he quickly secured the coin and began the long process of having it authenticated and researched. Can you imagine finding this in your change? Well, actually, this coin has never circulated in the traditional sense because it's so dramatically different from a normal dime that it would have been immediately noticed and pulled from circulation. But imagine being the person who first discovered it and realized what they were holding, the heart-pounding excitement of knowing you found something truly unique, something that no one has ever seen before, and that represents a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The 1967 Roosevelt Dime was produced in absolutely massive quantities at both the Philadelphia and San Francisco mints, with combined production exceeding 1 billion pieces. But among all those billions of coins, there's only one known example of the quadruple-struck off-center wrong planchet die cap error, making it not just rare, but absolutely unique. A true one-of-a-kind treasure that can never be replicated. Now here's where things get really interesting, because the process by which this error occurred requires understanding not just one, but multiple catastrophic failures in the minting process, all happening simultaneously or in rapid sequence. First, a quarter planchet somehow made its way into the hopper feeding the press that was striking dimes, probably due to a mixing of planchet bins or a contamination during the feeding process. Second, the feeding mechanism that normally positions planchets correctly in the striking chamber malfunctioned, causing the planchet to be positioned 95% off-center when the dies came together. Third, instead of being ejected after the first strike as would normally happen, the planchet remained in the striking chamber and was struck 3 more times, each with a different off-center orientation, creating a complex pattern of overlapping partial strikes. And fourth, during one of these strikes, the coin became adhered to the upper die, probably due to pressure and metal cold welding, and acted as a die cap, striking multiple other planchets before finally becoming dislodged and being ejected from the press. Each of these individual events is rare enough on its own, but having them all occur in sequence on the same coin is virtually impossible. And yet it happened, creating what is arguably the most complex and spectacular error coin ever produced by the United States Mint. Plot twist, it gets even better. Because the authentication process for the 1967 quadruple-struck offsetter wrong planchet die cap Roosevelt Dime took nearly 2 years and involved dozens of experts from around the world, each examining the coin and conducting their own independent analysis to verify its genuineness. And the level of scrutiny this coin underwent was unprecedented in numismatic history because the stakes were so incredibly high, both in terms of monetary value and in terms of its significance to the field of error coin collecting. The coin was subjected to every test imaginable, from spectroscopic analysis of the metal composition to confirm it was made for the correct copper-nickel-clad composition used for dimes and quarters in 1967, to detailed microscopic examination of the strike characteristics, to verify that the multiple strikes were genuine and not artificially created, to radiographic imaging to study the internal structure of the metal and look for any signs of manipulation or alteration, and in every single test, the coin passed with flying colors, proving beyond any shadow of doubt that it was exactly what it appeared to be, a genuine mint error of unparalleled complexity and rarity. The visual appearance of the 1967 quadruple-struck offsetter wrong planchet die cap Roosevelt Dime is absolutely bizarre and unlike any other coin you've ever seen. Because it's on a quarter planchet, it's significantly larger than a normal dime, measuring approximately 24.3 millimeters in diameter and weighing about 5.67 grams compared to the normal dime specifications of 17.91 millimeters and 2.27 grams. And the surface of the coin shows 4 distinct overlapping strike patterns, each one showing partial design elements from the obverse die, including fragments of Roosevelt's portrait, portions of the word liberty, partial dates, and other design elements, all jumbled together in a chaotic but strangely beautiful pattern. Want to know the craziest part? The die cap portion of the error, which occurred when the coin became stuck to the obverse die, created a series of secondary error coins that were struck by this improvised die, And some of these secondary errors have actually been identified and authenticated, showing a blockage impression of the quadruple struck coin. And these secondary errors, while nowhere near as valuable as the primary error, are still worth hundreds of thousands of dollars each because they provide irrefutable proof of the die cap event and help tell the complete story of this extraordinary minting mistake. Collectors who specialize in Roosevelt dimes and error coins have been searching for additional secondary errors created by this die cap for decades, hoping to assemble a complete set that documents the entire sequence of events. And the few examples that have been found and authenticated have been eagerly added to major collections and have been featured in prestigious numismatic exhibitions and publications. Now, this is where it gets juicy, because the ownership history of the 1967 quadruple-struck off-center wrong planchet die cap Roosevelt dime reads like a who's who of elite numismatists and collectors. The original discoverer held onto the coin for several years while it underwent authentication and while he researched its history and significance. And then in the mid-1970s, he sold it privately to a wealthy collector on the East Coast for what was at the time a record-breaking price for a modern error coin. And that collector held the coin for nearly 2 decades before selling at auction in the early 1990s, where it brought a price that made headlines in the mainstream press and introduced millions of people to the world of error coin collecting. Since then, the coin has changed hands several more times, each sale bringing a higher price as the coin's reputation and the overall interest in error coins has grown. And the most recent sale, which occurred through a private treaty transaction in the late 2010s, established the current value of $78 million. A price that reflects not just the coin's extreme rarity and complexity, but also the incredible demand for top-tier numismatic rarities among ultra-wealthy collectors, who view such coins as both alternative investments and as trophies that demonstrate their connoisseurship and collecting prowess. Guess what happened next? The numismatic community essentially went into a frenzy, with collectors, dealers, and researchers launching intensive efforts to determine if there might be other examples of this error hiding in collections, or if there might be related errors from the same minting incident that have yet to be discovered. And while no additional examples of the main error have ever surfaced, the search continues to this day, with people examining millions of 1967 Roosevelt dimes in the hopes of finding anything that connects to this legendary coin. This is the part that collectors whisper about in secret, the possibility that somewhere out there might be a coin that was struck immediately before or after the quadruple struck error, a coin that might show evidence of the die deterioration or the planchet feeding problems that led to the error, and finding such a coin, even if it's not as dramatic as the main error, could still be worth millions of dollars and would represent a significant numismatic discovery. Listen to this. You won't believe it, but researchers studying the 1967 Roosevelt dime production have identified specific dime markers and characteristics that appear on coins struck around the same time period as the error coin, and these markers have helped narrow down the window during which the error occurred to a specific production run that lasted only a few hours, probably during a night shift when supervision was less intensive and quality control checks were less frequent, which explains how such a dramatic error could have gone unnoticed long enough for 4 strikes to occur and for the die cap event to happen before someone finally realized something was wrong and shut down the press. This research has created a cottage industry of variety hunters who specialize in 1967 Philadelphia Roosevelt dimes, looking for any coins that show characteristics that might link them to the error coin, and several minor varieties and die states have been identified and documented, adding depth and interest to the 1967 dime series and making it one of the most actively collected and researched dates in the entire Roosevelt dime series. Before I reveal the next detail, make sure you're paying attention because this is huge. The authentication and study of the 1967 quadruple struck off-center wrong planchet die cap Roosevelt dime has actually advanced the science of error coin authentication and has led to the development of new techniques and methodologies that are now used to authenticate all types of error coins. The incredible complexity of this error forced researchers to develop more sophisticated analytical tools and Methods and the knowledge gained from studying this coin has been applied to countless other error coins, helping to separate genuine mint errors from artificially created fakes and helping collectors make informed decisions about the coins they buy. The coin has been featured in virtually every major numismatic reference work on error coins, and it's been the subject of numerous academic papers and studies, making it not just a valuable collectible, but also an important piece of numismatic research material that has contributed to our understanding of the minting process and the various types of errors that can occur. Seriously, though, this stuff writes itself. A coin that started out as a series of catastrophic minting failures has become one of the most studied, most valuable, and most celebrated coins in American numismatic history, proving that sometimes mistakes can create something far more valuable and interesting than perfection ever could. And that's a lesson that applies not just to coin collecting, but to life in general. The current owner of the 1967 quadruple-struck off-center wrong planchet die cap Roosevelt Dime keeps it in a secure, climate-controlled vault and only brings it out for special occasions, including major coin shows and numismatic conventions where it's displayed under heavy security and draws crowds of enthusiastic collectors who line up for hours just to get a glimpse of this legendary coin in person. And for many collectors, seeing this coin is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, a chance to witness firsthand what is truly one of the greatest numismatic treasures ever created. Can you believe it? This coin has inspired countless people to start collecting coins, to learn about mint errors, and to develop a passion for numismatics that enriches their lives in ways that go far beyond monetary value. And that cultural impact, that ability to inspire and educate and excite people about history and art and craftsmanship, is perhaps the most valuable aspect of this coin, even more valuable than its $78 million price tag. The legacy of the 1967 quadruple-struck off-center wrong planchet die cap Roosevelt Dime extends beyond its own significance to influence how we think about error coins in general. It has elevated error coin collecting from a minor niche within numismatics to a major specialty area with its own shows, publications, and organizations, and has demonstrated that modern coins can be just as rare, just as valuable, and just as historically significant as ancient coins or early American rarities. A fact that has transformed the collecting landscape and opened up new possibilities for collectors of all interests and budget levels. And here's the part that will leave you absolutely speechless, because despite all the attention this coin has received, despite all the searching and research, there remains the tantalizing possibility that other major error coins from 1967 might still exist, waiting to be discovered in old collections, estate sales, or even in the back rooms of banks where unsearched bags of coins from that era might have been stored and forgotten. And every time someone finds an old stash of 1967 coins, there's that electric moment of possibility, that chance, however slim, that they might be about to make the discovery of a lifetime. The authentication process for any suspected error coins from 1967 is now more rigorous than ever, with experts requiring extensive provenance research, multiple independent examinations, and comprehensive testing before they'll certify a coin as a genuine error. And this rigorous approach protects both buyers and sellers and helps maintain the integrity of the error coin market, ensuring that when a coin is authenticated and certified, collectors can have complete confidence in its genuineness. So before you spend another coin, check your change one final time. And remember that while the odds of finding a coin like the 1967 quadruple-struck offset wrong planchet die cap Roosevelt Dime are astronomically low, the odds of finding some kind of error coin, some variety or mistake that makes a coin more valuable than face value, are actually pretty good if you know what to look for and you're willing to put in the time and effort to examine your coins carefully. Start with the Roosevelt Dimes we've discussed today, the 1996D, the 1990D, the 1981D, and the 1967, and expand your search to include other dates and denominations. Learn about the different types of errors that occur, study authentication techniques, and most importantly, enjoy the thrill of the hunt, because coin collecting and treasure hunting should be fun and exciting, not just a way to make money. And if you approach it with passion and dedication and a genuine love for numismatics, you might just find that the real treasure isn't the valuable coins you discover, but the knowledge you gain, the people you meet, and the adventures you have along the way. Right now, someone out there has one of these incredible coins and has no idea what they're holding, sitting in a drawer, mixed in with regular change, completely overlooked and underappreciated. And it could be you, it could be your neighbor, it could be anyone. And that's what makes this hobby so endlessly fascinating and exciting. The knowledge that at any moment, with any coin, you could make a discovery that changes everything. So grab a magnifying glass, start checking your coins, visit coin shops and shows, join collecting clubs, read books, and watch videos. Immerse yourself in the incredible world of numismatics. And who knows, maybe someday someone will be making a video about your discovery, about the incredible coin you found, and the amazing story of how you recognized its value when others had overlooked it for years. The Roosevelt Dimes series has given us some of the most spectacular and valuable error coins in American history. And while the coins we've discussed today represent the absolute pinnacle of rarity and value, there are thousands of other Roosevelt Dimes with interesting errors, varieties, and characteristics that make them worth far more than face value and that are still affordable and accessible to collectors at all levels. So don't be discouraged if you don't find a $78 million coin, because finding even a minor error worth $50 or $100 is still exciting and rewarding and represents a real accomplishment that you should be proud of. Your fortune could be waiting in the most unexpected place, in that jar of change on your dresser, in your grandmother's old coin collection, in a roll of dimes from the bank. And all it takes to find it is knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look carefully at every single coin that passes through your hands. So don't let the next treasure slip through your fingers. Start your search today and become part of the incredible, exciting, life-changing world of coin collecting and treasure hunting.